The festive season, particularly Christmas, is often painted with broad strokes of communal joy, familial warmth, and shared celebration. Images of bustling gatherings, gift exchanges, and multi-generational feasts dominate cultural narratives, advertising, and personal expectations. Yet, beneath this shimmering veneer of collective merriment lies a profound counter-narrative, the experience of spending Christmas alone. For a significant portion of the population this time of year, far from being a period of connection, becomes an acute amplifier of social isolation, personal introspection, or even quiet contemplation. It is an experience often shrouded in societal discomfort, frequently perceived as a failure of connection, or worse, a sign of personal deficiency. This essay delves into the multifaceted experience of spending Christmas alone, moving beyond superficial interpretations to explore both its psychological complexities and its profound spiritual opportunities. We will examine the psychological challenges rooted in attachment patterns, societal conditioning, and cognitive biases that can make solitary holidays particularly poignant or painful. Simultaneously, we will uncover the rich spiritual dimensions inherent in solitude, drawing wisdom from diverse traditions that embrace aloneness as a powerful path to deeper truth, inner connection, and authentic self-discovery. By integrating contemporary psychological research with ancient spiritual insights, this exploration aims to offer a more compassionate and comprehensive understanding of this often overlooked human experience. Our journey will first establish the psychological mechanisms that contribute to feelings of loneliness and isolation during the holidays, contrasting them with the spiritual perspectives that view solitude as a crucible for growth. We will then explore modern manifestations of this phenomenon, supported by recent research, followed by illustrative examples from both psychological case studies and spiritual biographies. Finally, we will outline practical integrations, offering both therapeutic strategies and contemplative practices that can transform the experience of Christmas alone from one of perceived lack into one of profound presence and self-acceptance. To understand the psychology and spirituality of spending Christmas alone, we must first differentiate between the objective state of social isolation and the subjective experience of loneliness. Social isolation refers to the objective absence of social contact, a quantifiable lack of interaction with others. Loneliness, however, is the distressing subjective experience that arises when one's need for social connection is not met, regardless of the actual number of people present. One can be surrounded by a crowd and still feel profoundly lonely, just as one can be objectively alone and feel deeply connected and content. During Christmas, the cultural emphasis on togetherness often exacerbates the feeling of loneliness for those who are socially isolated, creating a stark contrast between internal reality and external expectation. From a psychological standpoint, the Christmas season is laden with powerful social scripts and idealized images. These narratives, perpetuated by media, family traditions, and collective memory, often present a vision of perfect familial harmony and abundant social engagement. For individuals spending the holiday alone, this pervasive cultural expectation can trigger a cascade of difficult emotions and cognitive distortions. Societal pressure and stigma. There is often a subtle yet potent societal stigma associated with being alone during Christmas. Questions like, quote, can become loaded, subtly implying that having no plans is undesirable. This external pressure can lead to feelings of shame, inadequacy, or being, for quote ones, impacting one's self-worth. Cognitive distortions. The mind, particularly under stress, is prone to cognitive distortions. During a solitary Christmas, individuals might engage in catastrophizing. This is the worst Christmas ever, and it means my life is a failure. All or nothing thinking. If I'm not with family, it's not truly Christmas. Or mind reading. Everyone else feels sorry for me. These thought patterns intensify negative emotions and reinforce feelings of isolation. Dr. Aaron Beck's Cognitive Therapy, 1979, highlights how such distorted thinking patterns directly contribute to emotional distress and can be challenged and reframed. Grief and loss. For many, spending Christmas alone is not a choice but a consequence of loss. The death of loved ones, the dissolution of relationships, geographical separation from family, or even the loss of an idealized past. The holiday season, with its strong ties to memory and tradition, can become a potent trigger for unresolved grief, bringing past losses to the forefront and amplifying feelings of sadness and yearning. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's work on grief, 1969, reminds us that loss is a complex journey, and holidays can be particularly acute points of regrieving. While psychology grapples with the pain of loneliness, many spiritual traditions offer a radically different lens through which to view solitude, often reframing it as a profound opportunity for inner work and spiritual awakening. The Spiritual Desert and the Cave of the Heart, Christian Contemplative and Sufi Traditions. In Christian contemplative traditions, the spiritual desert is a metaphorical space of withdrawal and solitude, often unchosen, where one confronts the self and seeks deeper communion with the divine. The desert fathers and mothers of early Christianity intentionally sought isolation to purify the soul and cultivate spiritual resilience. Similarly, in Sufism, the concept of khalwa, seclusion, or retreating into the cave of the heart, is a recognized path for purifying the nafs, ego self, and drawing closer to God. These traditions teach that it is in the absence of external distractions that true spiritual work can begin, and perceived abandonment can become a profound encounter with the sacred. Anatta and interconnectedness, Buddhism and Hinduism, Buddhist philosophy, particularly the concept of anatta, no self, challenges the very notion of an isolated, separate self. If the self is not a fixed, independent entity, but rather an ever-changing collection of processes interconnected with all phenomena, then true isolation is an illusion. Similarly, in Hindu Vedanta, the teaching of Atman, the individual soul, being Brahman, the universal self, asserts that one is never truly alone, but always connected to the ultimate reality. The perceived separation is Maya, an illusion. These perspectives invite a radical re-evaluation of solitude, transforming it from a state of disconnection into an opportunity to recognize inherent interconnectedness. Meaning-making in existential philosophy. Existential thinkers like Viktor Frankl emphasize the human search for meaning, even in suffering. For those alone at Christmas, this philosophical lens encourages an active process of meaning-making. Rather than succumbing to the narrative of loss, one can choose to find purpose in the solitude, perhaps as a time for self-reflection, creative pursuit, or a deeper engagement with personal values. This active engagement with one's freedom and responsibility in the face of solitude transforms a passive experience into an authentic choice. The experience of spending Christmas alone, therefore, is not monolithic. It is a complex interplay of psychological vulnerabilities and profound spiritual potentials, a crucible where societal pressures meet individual consciousness and where the pain of perceived separation can either entrench loneliness or catalyze a deeper connection to self, others, and the sacred. Having established the nuanced interplay between objective isolation, subjective loneliness, and the profound potential inherent in solitude, we now turn our attention to the deliberate cultivation of strategies designed to transform the experience of Christmas alone. This chapter will delineate a comprehensive framework, integrating evidence-based psychological interventions with ancient contemplative practices, thereby equipping individuals with the tools to navigate this unique temporal landscape, not as a void, but as a crucible for growth and self-discovery. Our aim is to dismantle the pervasive societal narrative that equates solitude with deficiency, replacing it with an empowering paradigm of intentional presence and authentic engagement with the self. The psychological dimension of spending Christmas alone often manifests as a confluence of challenging emotions, amplified by societal expectations. However, through conscious application of specific cognitive and behavioral strategies, individuals can construct a robust internal architecture capable of withstanding external pressures and fostering inner resilience. Central to mitigating the distress associated with solitary holidays is the practice of cognitive restructuring. This therapeutic approach involves identifying, challenging, and ultimately modifying maladaptive thought patterns that contribute to feelings of inadequacy, shame, or despair. During a period of heightened social emphasis, individuals may fall prey to several common cognitive distortions: catastrophizing, magnifying the negative aspects of being alone, perceiving it as an unbearable or catastrophic event, e.g., quote, 10. All or nothing thinking, viewing the situation in extreme terms without recognizing any shades of grey, or g.g., quote, 11. Personalization, believing that one is solely responsible for negative events or that the situation reflects a personal failing, e.g., quote, 12. Mind reading, assuming one knows what others are thinking, often negatively, e.g., quote, 13. To counteract these distortions, we advocate for a systematic process of inquiry and re-evaluation. Individuals are encouraged to question the evidence supporting their negative thoughts, to consider alternative explanations, and to identify more balanced and realistic perspectives. For instance, a catastrophic thought about an quote 14 Christmas can be challenged by recalling past instances of resilience, or by focusing on small, manageable activities that bring a modicum of peace. The recognition that societal narratives often dictate emotional responses rather than inherent personal deficit can be immensely liberating. This process empowers individuals to reclaim agency over their internal experience, transforming passive suffering into active mental engagement. Beyond the realm of thought, the behavioral dimension offers tangible pathways to transforming a solitary Christmas. Behavioral activation, a key component of therapeutic interventions for mood disorders, emphasizes the importance of engaging in activities that are aligned with one's values and that provide a sense of pleasure or accomplishment. The void that can accompany a solitary holiday is often exacerbated by a lack of structure or purposeful action. We propose that individuals proactively design their Christmas day rather than allowing it to unfold passively. This involves scheduling meaningful activities. Rather than succumbing to inertia, one can plan activities that genuinely resonate. This might include indulging in a beloved hobby, reading a long-anticipated book, watching a film, engaging in creative pursuits, or preparing a special meal for oneself. The emphasis here is on intentionality and self-nurturing, transforming the day from an empty expanse into a curated experience, engaging in self-care rituals. This encompasses practices that promote physical and mental well-being, such as mindful movement, a leisurely bath, spending time in nature, or listening to calming music. These rituals are not merely distractions, but deliberate acts of self-reverence, acknowledging one's intrinsic worth regardless of external circumstances. Acts of service, where applicable. For some, the opportunity to contribute to the well-being of others can be profoundly enriching. Volunteering, even remotely, or performing small acts of kindness for neighbours can foster a sense of connection and purpose, counteracting feelings of isolation. This external focus can redirect attention from perceived personal lack to shared humanity. Creating new traditions. The absence of established communal traditions can be reframed as an invitation to forge new, personal ones. This might involve an annual solo pilgrimage to a meaningful place, a specific culinary ritual, or a reflective practice unique to one's solitary celebration. Such personalized traditions imbue the day with personal significance and a sense of continuity. These behavioral adjustments serve not merely as diversions, but as active investments in one's psychological capital, fostering a sense of control, competence, and connection to one's deeper self. Even with robust cognitive and behavioral strategies, moments of profound sadness, grief, or longing may inevitably arise. The capacity for emotional regulation and the cultivation of self-compassion become paramount during these times. Emotional regulation involves the ability to respond to the full spectrum of emotions in a flexible and adaptive manner, rather than being overwhelmed or avoiding them. We advocate for mindful acknowledgement. Instead of suppressing difficult emotions, individuals are encouraged to acknowledge their presence without judgment. This involves observing feelings as transient phenomena akin to clouds passing in the sky, rather than identifying with them as core aspects of the self. Practices such as mindful breathing can anchor one in the present moment, creating a space for emotional observation without entanglement. Self-compassion. A cornerstone of emotional well-being, self-compassion entails treating oneself with the same kindness, understanding, and acceptance one would offer a beloved friend facing similar difficulties. This means recognizing that suffering, including loneliness, is part of the shared human experience, rather than a personal failing. Self-compassionate responses might include offering oneself comforting words, a gentle touch, or engaging in a soothing activity. It explicitly rejects the self-criticism that often accompanies feelings of inadequacy during solitary periods. These practices foster an internal environment of acceptance and kindness, transforming the inner critic into an inner ally, and enabling a more peaceful coexistence with the challenging emotions that may surface. While psychological strategies address the immediate and acute challenges of solitary holidays, contemplative and spiritual approaches offer a deeper, more enduring transformation. They invite individuals to transcend the superficiality of external circumstances and to access an innate wellspring of peace, connection, and meaning that resides within. The cacophony of the festive season, with its incessant demands for external engagement, often obscures the profound silence that can be found within. Contemplative practices such as meditation, silent prayer, or deep reflection offer a direct pathway to this inner stillness, drawing from traditions as diverse as Christian contemplative prayer, Buddhist samatha vipassana, calm abiding and insight, and Sufi dhikr, remembrance of God. The essence of these practices lies in focused attention, directing awareness to a specific object, the breath, a mantra, a sacred text, or the silence itself, to quiet the incessant chatter of the mind. This sustained attention grounds one in the present moment, dissolving the anxieties of past regrets or future uncertainties. Open awareness, allowing thoughts and sensations to arise and pass without judgment or attachment, fostering a spaciousness of mind. This practice cultivates an inner witness, observing the flow of experience without being consumed by it. Deepening connection. Through sustained inner work, individuals often report a profound sense of connection to their authentic self, to a higher power, or to the universal fabric of existence. This connection transcends physical proximity, demonstrating that true belonging is an internal state, not merely an external circumstance. The solitary Christmas thus becomes an unparalleled opportunity to dedicate oneself to these practices, transforming a potentially isolating period into a spiritual retreat, a deliberate withdrawal into the cave of the heart where genuine solace and profound insight can be discovered. Gratitude, a profoundly transformative practice, shifts the perceptual lens from what is lacking to what is abundant. During a solitary Christmas, when feelings of deprivation may loom large, actively cultivating gratitude can reframe the entire experience. This is not a naive denial of difficulty, but a conscious choice to acknowledge and appreciate the positive aspects of one's life, however small they may seem. Mindful appreciation. This involves taking specific moments to identify and savor aspects for which one is grateful. This could be the warmth of a home, the comfort of a pet, the beauty of nature outside a window, the gift of health, or simply the ability to breathe freely. Gratitude journaling. Regularly noting down specific things for which one is grateful can rewire neural pathways, fostering a more positive outlook over time. Even during a solitary Christmas, one can find moments of quiet appreciation for personal freedom, the absence of conflict, or the opportunity for uninterrupted reflection. The practice of gratitude, particularly when embraced in solitude, reveals that richness is not solely derived from external communal celebrations, but can be found in the quiet, often overlooked blessings of everyday existence. It reorients the individual towards an inherent sense of sufficiency. Ultimately, the most profound transformation occurs when individuals cease to merely cope with solitude and begin to embrace its inherent wisdom. This involves a fundamental re-evaluation of solitude not as a consequence of societal failure or personal deficiency, but as a chosen and valuable state for self-realization. The wisdom of solitude reveals that, authenticity flourishes. Without the constant influence of social expectations, individuals are afforded the space to connect with their true desires, values, and aspirations, unburdened by the need to perform or conform. Creativity awakens. Many great artists, thinkers, and spiritual leaders have found their deepest insights and creative breakthroughs in periods of intense solitude. The quiet allows for the emergence of novel ideas and perspectives. Interconnectedness is revealed. Paradoxically, deep solitude can lead to a more profound understanding of universal interconnectedness. When the individual ego quiets, the sense of separation often dissolves, revealing a fundamental unity with all life, echoing the Buddhist and Hindu philosophies discussed previously. The external world may be absent, but the internal world expands to encompass the whole. Meaning is forged. In the stillness, one is confronted with the existential task of meaning-making. This is an opportunity to reflect on life's purpose, to integrate past experiences, and to chart a course for future growth, transforming the solitary Christmas into a powerful rite of passage. By consciously adopting these psychological and contemplative strategies, individuals can transform the experience of Christmas alone from a period fraught with potential distress into an intentional journey of self-discovery, profound presence, and genuine inner peace. The solitary festive season, rather than being a marker of absence, thus becomes a potent symbol of presence, a testament to the enduring human capacity for resilience, introspection, and the cultivation of an inner life rich with meaning. Having navigated the intricate architecture of solitude and engaged in the deliberate practices of cognitive restructuring, behavioral activation, and spiritual cultivation, the individual who spends Christmas alone embarks upon a profound internal metamorphosis. This final chapter explores the enduring resonance of this journey, delineating the specific fruits of such introspection and the ways in which a solitary festive season can forge a new paradigm of presence, connection, and self-realization that extends far beyond the temporal confines of the holiday itself. We posit that the intentional embrace of solitude, when approached with conscious awareness and spiritual intention, transmutes from a potential crucible of suffering into a wellspring of enduring wisdom, fundamentally reshaping one's relationship with self, others, and the encompassing universe. The initial perception of Christmas alone often centers on a profound sense of absence. The lack of familial warmth, the dearth of shared laughter, the void where communal rituals typically reside. However, through the intentional work outlined in the preceding chapters, this perceived absence begins to yield to a burgeoning sense of abundance. The individual learns to discern the intrinsic richness of their own inner landscape, shifting their locus of fulfillment from external validation to internal generation. This is not merely a coping mechanism, but a radical redefinition of what constitutes fullness in human experience. The creation of an inner sanctuary becomes paramount in this metamorphosis. When the external world recedes, or its celebratory clamour is consciously disengaged from, an internal space opens, a cave of the heart, as various spiritual traditions term it. This sanctuary is not empty. Rather, it is replete with the subtle energies of self-awareness, introspection, and the quiet hum of one's authentic being. It is within this sacred space that true self-sufficiency is cultivated, a profound independence from the shifting sands of external circumstance or societal expectation. Here, the individual discovers that peace is not contingent upon the presence of others or the adherence to prescribed festive norms, but rather upon the cultivation of an internal equilibrium. The silence, once a potential amplifier of loneliness, transforms into a resonant chamber for self-discovery, where the whispers of intuition and the stirrings of creativity can be distinctly heard, unobscured by the cacophony of the world. This amplified self-awareness is a direct and invaluable fruit of deep introspection. Stripped of the roles and expectations imposed by social interactions, the individual confronts their unvarnished self. This confrontation, initially perhaps uncomfortable, ultimately leads to a more profound and authentic understanding of one's values, desires, and inner strengths. The time spent in solitary reflection allows for a detailed mapping of one's psychological terrain, identifying latent talents, confronting unaddressed fears, and recognizing inherent resilience. Authenticity, therefore, ceases to be an aspirational trait and becomes an inherent state, a natural outgrowth of prolonged, unmediated engagement with the self. This authenticity, forged as a quiet fire of solitude, becomes a guiding beacon, informing future decisions and interactions with a clarity previously unattainable. One of the most profound paradoxes unveiled by the intentional embrace of solitude during Christmas is the redefinition of connection itself. Societal narratives overwhelmingly equate connection with external, often physical proximity and shared experiences. Yet, the solitary journey reveals that true connection transcends these superficial parameters, rooted instead in an internal sense of belonging and a profound awareness of interconnectedness. The individual moves beyond a relational dependence, where self-worth and completeness are derived from external validation or the presence of others. This shift is not a rejection of human relationships, but an elevation of their quality. When one no longer needs others to complete oneself, relationships can be entered into from a place of wholeness and abundance, rather than lack or compensatory desire. This profound internal rootedness liberates the individual from the anxieties of social approval and the pressure to conform, allowing for more genuine and meaningful engagements when they do occur. The fear of being alone diminishes as the intrinsic value of one's own company is recognized and cherished. Furthermore, the experience of profound solitude often opens a portal to a deeper, more universal thread of connection. When the personal self is quieted, the individual may become more attuned to the broader tapestry of existence. This can manifest as a heightened connection to nature, the quiet majesty of a winter landscape, the intricate patterns of a single snowflake, the enduring cycle of life and death. It can also foster a profound sense of connection to humanity at large, not through specific interpersonal bonds, but through an empathetic understanding of the shared human condition, its joys and its sorrows. Spiritual traditions, as previously discussed, emphasize this non-dualistic perspective, where the perceived separation between self and other, individual and cosmos, is an illusion. In the depths of solitary contemplation, this illusion can begin to unravel, revealing an underlying unity. The individual may experience a sense of belonging to something far greater than their immediate social circle, a connection to the collective consciousness, to the divine, or to the very fabric of being. This is the paradox of solitary interconnectedness. By withdrawing from the external, one can paradoxically encounter a more expansive and profound sense of belonging. The we of humanity becomes an internal experience, not merely an external grouping. The insights gleaned and the strengths forged during a solitary Christmas are not ephemeral. Rather, they represent an inner harvest that, when consciously integrated, can sustain and enrich daily life long after the festive season concludes. The practices of self-awareness, emotional regulation, and spiritual attunement become foundational pillars, transforming the individual's approach to their ongoing existence. The integration into daily life manifests in several key ways. The cognitive restructuring skills honed during the holiday, for instance, empower the individual to challenge negative thought patterns and societal pressures not just around holidays, but in all aspects of life. The ability to identify and reframe catastrophic thinking, or to resist the allure of all or nothing assessments, becomes a potent tool for navigating everyday challenges, fostering greater psychological resilience. Similarly, the behavioral activation strategies, the deliberate scheduling of meaningful self-nurturing activities, transitions from a holiday-specific coping mechanism to a core component of a sustainable well-being practice. The individual learns the profound importance of prioritizing self-care, creativity, and spiritual nourishment not as luxuries, but as essential elements for a balanced and fulfilling life. This cultivated resilience and self-sufficiency are perhaps the most tangible long-term benefits. Having successfully navigated a period often deemed challenging by societal norms, the individual emerges with an enhanced sense of personal agency and an internal locus of control. They discover that their capacity for contentment and meaning-making is not dependent on external circumstances or the validation of others. This robust internal foundation allows them to face future adversities with greater equanimity, drawing upon a wellspring of inner strength that has been consciously developed. The fear of future solitude or of being significantly diminishes, replaced by a quiet confidence in one's capacity to thrive independently. Crucially, this transformative experience fosters a new social paradigm. The individual, having cultivated a profound sense of internal wholeness, can now engage with the world from a place of abundance rather than need. Social interactions become less about seeking validation or filling an internal void, and more about genuine connection, shared purpose, and authentic contribution. They are better equipped to set healthy boundaries, to choose relationships that truly nourish them, and to offer their presence to others from a place of grounded self-possession. This shift ultimately elevates the quality of their social engagements, transforming them from potentially transactional exchanges into expressions of authentic relatedness. The individual becomes a source of stability and presence, rather than a seeker of it. The journey through a solitary Christmas, when undertaken with intention and introspection, culminates in the acquisition of enduring wisdom. This wisdom challenges prevailing societal narratives that often stigmatize solitude, reframing it not as an absence or a deficiency, but as a potent and necessary dimension of human experience, a fertile ground for profound self-discovery and spiritual awakening. We contend that the solitary hearth is not a place of desolation, but rather a metaphorical space of profound warmth and illumination, where the inner light of the individual is tended and allowed to burn brightly. It is a space where the noise of the external world is silenced, permitting the individual to hear the deeper rhythms of their own being and to connect with universal truths. This experience compels a re-evaluation of what constitutes a successful or meaningful Christmas, moving beyond consumerism and social performance to embrace an internal richness that no external celebration can replicate. The wisdom gleaned from this journey underscores solitude as an ongoing practice, not merely a one-time event or a temporary state to be endured. It advocates for the regular cultivation of quietude and introspection as essential components of a balanced and spiritually attuned life. Just as physical exercise strengthens the body and intellectual pursuit sharpens the mind, intentional solitude hones the spirit, deepening one's capacity for presence, compassion, and insight. It is a continuous pilgrimage inward, a sustained commitment to self-knowledge and spiritual growth. In conclusion, the solitary hearth endeavours to dismantle the societal stigma surrounding the experience of spending Christmas alone, offering a comprehensive framework for understanding its psychological challenges and, more importantly, its profound spiritual opportunities. We have traversed from the initial discomfort of isolation and loneliness through the practical strategies for cognitive and emotional reorientation to the ultimate realization of enduring presence and interconnectedness. The central mystery, how to transform this potentially distressing experience into one of profound presence and self-acceptance, is resolved through a deliberate, multifaceted approach that integrates psychological resilience with spiritual awakening. The individual who embraces this journey does not merely survive Christmas alone, they thrive in its crucible, emerging not only whole, but profoundly enriched. They become exemplars of a deeper truth, that true connection begins within, that peace is an internal construct, and that the greatest gifts are often discovered not in the clamour of the crowd, but in the quietude of one's own heart. The solitary hearth, therefore, becomes a beacon, illuminating a path toward a more authentic, resilient, and spiritually resonant way of being in the world, not just during the festive season, but throughout the entire tapestry of life. This perspective invites us all to reconsider the inherent value of our inner lives and the transformative power latent within moments of intentional solitude, challenging us to see the quote 26 not as an absence, but as a profound and fertile presence. The preceding chapters have illuminated the profound journey from the societal construct of Christmas solitude as a source of distress to its reframing, as a crucible for psychological resilience and spiritual awakening. We have traced the metamorphosis of meaning, wherein absence transmutes into inner abundance, and the perceived void of isolation yields to a discovery of self-sufficiency and amplified authenticity. The resolution of the initial mystery, that of transforming a potentially distressing experience into one of profound presence, culminates in a new paradigm, the solitary hearth, no longer a symbol of deprivation, but a potent source of enduring wisdom and inner peace. This chapter endeavours to explore the sustained architecture of this transformation, examining how the insights gleaned from a Christmas spent alone resonate far beyond the festive season, integrating into the fabric of daily life as a perennial philosophy of being. we consider the mechanisms through which this cultivated inner landscape fosters a deeper, more authentic engagement with both self and world, thereby challenging conventional notions of connection and community. The profound shifts experienced during an intentional Christmas alone are not ephemeral. Rather, they lay the groundwork for a new enduring architecture of selfhood. The individual, having navigated the perceived wilderness of solitude, emerges with a refined internal compass, capable of charting a course through the complexities of life with greater equanimity. This sustained state is cultivated through a conscious commitment to ongoing practices and a fundamental recalibration of one's cognitive and emotional frameworks. The development of an underscore quote, 27 underscore becomes paramount. This is not a physical space but a psychological and spiritual refuge, an internal landscape meticulously constructed and maintained through consistent engagement with the practices first embraced during the solitary Christmas. Meditation, for instance, transcends its initial role as a coping mechanism, evolving into a daily ritual that anchors the individual in the present moment, fostering a continuous awareness of the inner stillness that underpins existence. Journaling, similarly, moves beyond catharsis to become a tool for ongoing self-reflection, a dialogue with the deeper self that consolidates insights and clarifies emerging truths. These deliberate engagements serve as bulwarks against the relentless tide of external demands and societal pressures, ensuring that the hard-won inner peace remains accessible and robust. Furthermore, cognitive reframing, initially employed to dismantle maladaptive thought patterns surrounding loneliness and inadequacy, transforms into a continuous vigilant process. The individual learns to identify and challenge the subtle, insidious narratives that seek to undermine their newfound self-sufficiency. Societal glorification of constant connection, the subtle shaming of quietude, and the pervasive emphasis on external validation are all recognized for what they are: external projections that do not define inner worth. This ongoing mental discipline fortifies the individual's internal locus of control, allowing them to choose their responses to the world from a place of conscious awareness rather than reactive conditioning. The solitary hearth, therefore, becomes not merely a temporary respite but a permanent dwelling place within the individual, a source of unwavering warmth and light. Perhaps one of the most paradoxical yet profound outcomes of embracing intentional solitude is its capacity to redefine and enrich the very nature of human connection. The individual who has cultivated an inner sense of belonging and self-sufficiency no longer approaches relationships from a place of deficit or need, but from an abundance of self. This fundamental shift alters the dynamic of all interactions. When engagement with others stems from wholeness rather than from a desire to fill an internal void, relationships become more authentic, more equitable, and ultimately more fulfilling. The pressure to conform, to perform, or to seek external validation dissipates. Instead, the individual is free to present their true self, unburdened by the anxieties of acceptance or rejection. This self-possessed presence paradoxically invites deeper, more meaningful connections, as others are drawn to the genuine integrity and tranquility emanating from such an individual. The fear of loneliness, having been confronted and transformed, no longer dictates social choices. Interactions are chosen for their intrinsic value and mutual enrichment, rather than as a means to escape an undesirable state. Moreover, the contemplative gaze cultivated in solitude extends outwards, informing the individual's perception of the world and its inhabitants. A heightened sense of empathy emerges, born not from identification with another's pain, but from a deeper understanding of the universal human condition. The interconnectedness, once an abstract spiritual concept, becomes a felt reality. This allows for a compassionate engagement with the collective, where service and contribution arise naturally from an overflow of inner peace and wisdom, rather than from a sense of obligation or a desire for recognition. The solitary hearth, in this sense, becomes a beacon, radiating warmth that subtly invites and sustains genuine community, built on mutual respect and shared humanity. The journey of self-discovery through solitude carries with it an inherent ethical dimension. The profound inner peace and resilience cultivated through this process are not merely for personal benefit. They hold the potential for significant contribution to the collective well-being. An individual who has achieved a measure of inner harmony becomes a stabilizing force in their environment, capable of responding to challenges with greater clarity, patience, and wisdom. This ethical imperative manifests in several ways. Firstly, the individual, having confronted and integrated their own shadows, develops an enhanced capacity for compassion towards others. They understand the universal struggles of the human spirit, recognizing that much suffering stems from unmet needs, unresolved traumas, and societal pressures. This deep empathy fuels a desire to alleviate suffering, not from a place of self-sacrifice or martyrdom, but from an overflow of inner abundance. Acts of kindness, service, and advocacy become natural extensions of their integrated self, flowing effortlessly from a wellspring of inner peace. Secondly, the quiet revolution of self-acceptance challenges prevalent societal narratives that often equate worth with external achievement, social status, or constant connectivity. By embodying a life rooted in inner validation and authenticity, the individual subtly yet powerfully offers an alternative paradigm. They demonstrate that profound fulfillment is attainable, independent of external circumstances or conventional markers of success. This quiet defiance can inspire others to question their own assumptions about happiness and purpose, fostering a broader cultural shift towards valuing introspection, presence, and genuine self-care. The solitary hearth, therefore, does not isolate. It empowers individuals to contribute to a more compassionate and conscious world, acting as a catalyst for collective transformation through their own embodied wisdom. The insights garnered from spending Christmas alone, when approached with intention and introspection, transcend the specific temporal and cultural context of the holiday. They coalesce into a perennial philosophy of being, applicable to all seasons of life and all experiences of solitude. The initial challenge of the solitary Christmas, therefore, serves as a potent training ground, equipping the individual with tools and perspectives that remain invaluable throughout their existence. This philosophy recognizes that moments of aloneness are not anomalies to be avoided, but rather recurring opportunities for introspection, renewal, and deeper connection with the self. The individual learns to embrace solitude not as an absence of others, but as a presence of self, a sacred space for listening to the inner voice, for creative expression, and for spiritual communion. Whether it is a quiet evening at home, a walk in nature, or a period of recovery from life's inevitable challenges, the principles honed during the solitary Christmas provide a framework for navigating these moments with grace and purpose. The solitary hearth, once a metaphor for the individual's experience during a specific holiday, thus expands its meaning to become a guiding star for life itself. It represents the enduring inner sanctuary, the wellspring of wisdom and peace that remains accessible regardless of external circumstances. It is a testament to the human capacity for resilience, for finding light in perceived darkness, and for transforming challenging experiences into profound opportunities for growth. This integrated approach, blending psychological fortitude with spiritual depth, offers a blueprint for a life lived with authenticity, compassion, and an unwavering sense of inner connection. The journey initiated by a solitary Christmas culminates in a profound reorientation towards life, where the individual becomes a master of their own inner landscape, capable of generating warmth and light from within, irrespective of the external climate. We will now turn our attention to the ultimate implications of this profound transformation for the individual's ongoing relationship with the world, seeking to understand how this re-envisioned existence shapes their legacy and influence. This chapter builds upon the quote 28, cultivated through the intentional experience of a solitary Christmas, exploring its wider societal implications and advocating for a fundamental reimagining of solitude itself. We examine how the transformed individual, having cultivated an inner sanctuary and redefined connection, becomes an agent of change, influencing communal norms and contributing to a more resilient, compassionate society. Furthermore, we posit that the insights gleaned from these solitary journeys offer a blueprint for a healthier collective understanding of human flourishing, moving beyond a purely relational paradigm to embrace the profound power of self-sufficiency and inner richness. The individual who has navigated the solitary Christmas with intention and emerged with an amplified sense of self and an quote 29, does not merely retreat from the world, rather they re-engage with it from a position of profound strength and authenticity. Their sustained transformation, detailed in Chapter 4, precipitates a ripple effect, subtly yet significantly altering the dynamics of their social interactions and by extension the broader community. Challenging the relational imperative. Society often operates under a pervasive, quote 30, where worth and well-being are predominantly measured by the quantity and quality of external relationships. The solitary individual, having discovered an internal wellspring of connection and meaning, inherently challenges this paradigm. They demonstrate through their very presence that wholeness is not contingent upon constant external validation or companionship. This quiet defiance acts as a counter-narrative, inviting others to question their own assumptions about happiness and belonging. Their interactions are no longer driven by a need to fill a void, but by a genuine desire to connect, share, and contribute from a place of abundance. This shift can be liberating for those around them, fostering relationships based on mutual respect and genuine interest rather than codependency or superficiality. Modeling authentic engagement. Having journeyed inward, these individuals possess a heightened self-awareness and integrity. Their engagement with others is characterized by authenticity, depth, and a reduced susceptibility to social pressures. They are less prone to performative interactions or the pursuit of approval, opting instead for honest communication and meaningful presence. This modelling of authentic engagement can inspire others to shed their own masks, cultivating an environment where vulnerability is seen not as weakness, but as a pathway to genuine connection. They become silent mentors, demonstrating that true belonging stems from being fully oneself, rather than conforming to external expectations. Contribution from wholeness. The Sir's quote, Third reaped during solitude translates into tangible contributions to the community. This might manifest as increased creativity, a deeper capacity for empathy, enhanced problem-solving skills, or a stronger commitment to service. Free from the anxieties of external validation, these individuals can dedicate their energies to endeavours that align with their core values, offering their unique gifts without reservation. Their actions are often imbued with a sense of purpose that transcends personal gain, reflecting a broader understanding of interconnectedness and collective well-being. They become sources of stability and wisdom, capable of offering grounded perspectives in times of collective uncertainty, precisely because their internal equilibrium is not easily swayed by external circumstances. The collective experience of individuals transforming their solitary Christmas necessitates a broader cultural re-evaluation of solitude itself. For too long, solitude has been conflated with loneliness, isolation, and even failure, particularly within Western societies that prioritize outward displays of social engagement. We contend that this narrow perception is detrimental to individual and collective well-being, and that a more nuanced, appreciative understanding is urgently required, differentiating solitude from loneliness. A critical first step in this reimagining is to firmly and consistently differentiate solitude from loneliness. As we have explored, loneliness is an unwanted state of perceived social isolation, often accompanied by distress and a sense of deficiency. Solitude, conversely, is a chosen state of being alone, embraced with intention, and often experienced as restorative, generative, and deeply meaningful. It is the distinction between an empty space and a sacred space. By consciously making this distinction in language, education, and public discourse, we begin to dismantle the stigma associated with being alone, reclaiming solitude as a human need. Just as sleep, nutrition, and social connection are recognized as fundamental human needs, so too should periods of intentional solitude be acknowledged. It is during these times that introspection flourishes, creativity is nurtured, and the inner self can recalibrate and replenish. In an increasingly hyper-connected, noisy, and demanding world, the capacity for solitude becomes not a luxury, but a vital mechanism for mental health, emotional regulation, and spiritual resilience. We must advocate for cultural spaces and practices that honour and facilitate this need, from designated quiet zones in urban environments to educational curricula that teach the art of mindful disengagement. The transformative power of the Chakwothertu revisited. The Quothurstyrti, as presented in Chapter 4, evolves from a personal refuge into a metaphorical beacon for society. It represents the potential for every individual to cultivate an inner sanctuary, independent of external circumstances. When a critical mass of individuals embraces this philosophy, the collective consciousness begins to shift. Society moves towards valuing inner richness as much as, if not more than, external achievement, or social status. This reimagining recognizes that true strength and genuine connection often emerge from a foundation of self-possession and inner peace, rather than from a frantic pursuit of external belonging. The profound insights gained from the intentional experience of solitude, particularly during culturally charged periods like Christmas, hold immense potential for enriching various facets of collective life. Integrating this wisdom requires deliberate effort across educational, therapeutic, and cultural domains. Educational imperatives. Education systems can play a pivotal role in fostering a healthier relationship with solitude from an early age. Curricula can incorporate practices of mindfulness, self-reflection, and creative introspection, teaching children and adolescents the value of quiet contemplation. By introducing concepts like the difference between solitude and loneliness, and by providing opportunities for independent work and self-directed learning, schools can equip future generations with the tools to navigate a complex world with greater inner resilience. Emphasizing the biographies of great thinkers, artists, and innovators who often relied on periods of intense solitude can further normalize and valorize this essential human experience. Therapeutic and wellness paradigms. Mental health and wellness paradigms can benefit significantly from integrating the wisdom of solitude. Traditional therapeutic approaches often focus on addressing social deficits or fostering external connections. While crucial, these can be augmented by practices that cultivate internal resources and strengthen the capacity for self-sufficiency. Therapists can guide clients in developing a positive relationship with solitude, utilizing it as a tool for self-discovery, emotional processing, and spiritual growth. Retreats and intentional periods of quiet reflection, often seen as niche offerings, could become more mainstream components of preventative mental health care, providing structured environments for individuals to engage with their, quote, 34 cultural narratives and media representation. The dominant cultural narratives surrounding solitude often perpetuate negative stereotypes. Media, literature, and popular culture frequently depict individuals alone as objects of pity, suspicion, or failure. A conscious effort is needed to create and disseminate narratives that portray solitude in its multifaceted and positive dimensions, as a source of creativity, wisdom, strength, and spiritual depth. Showcasing characters who thrive in chosen solitude, who use it for growth, and who contribute meaningfully to society from this place of inner strength, can gradually reshape public perception and diminish the pervasive stigma. This includes celebrating figures who have historically embraced solitude, monks, hermits, artists, scientists, not as anomalies, but as exemplars of a vital human path. While our exploration began with the specific context of Christmas, the principles and practices elucidated are not confined to a single festive period. The intentional embrace of solitude, the cultivation of an quote, 35 and the transformation of perceived absence into profound presence represent a perennial practice applicable to any life challenge, any period of transition, and any moment of perceived isolation. Building general life resilience. The skills developed in navigating a solitary Christmas, cognitive restructuring, emotional regulation, mindful presence, and the cultivation of inner resources are universally transferable. They equip individuals with a robust toolkit for managing stress, coping with loss, adapting to change, and maintaining psychological equilibrium in the face of adversity. The quote 36 thus becomes a foundational element of general life resilience, enabling individuals to not merely survive challenging periods, but to actively grow and thrive through them, fostering a culture of inner abundance. Ultimately, the reimagining of solitude contributes to a broader cultural shift towards valuing quote 37 vers over external acquisition or validation. In a world grappling with consumerism, environmental degradation, and pervasive anxiety, a focus on internal resources, mindfulness, self-compassion, spiritual connection, and creative self-expression offers a sustainable and deeply fulfilling path. When individuals are less dependent on external sources for their happiness and identity, they are better equipped to engage with the world responsibly, compassionately, and with a sense of genuine purpose. A call for collective introspection. The lessons from the solitary Christmas serve as a powerful invitation for collective introspection. What does it mean for a society to fear solitude? What are the implications of constantly seeking external stimulation and validation? By examining these questions, we can begin to construct a society that not only tolerates, but actively encourages and supports the cultivation of inner life, recognizing it as the bedrock of individual and collective well-being. This requires a commitment to creating policies, spaces, and cultural norms that allow for quiet, reflection, and the profound work of self-discovery. In conclusion, the journey of the individual who transforms a solitary Christmas transcends personal experience. It becomes a testament to human resilience, a blueprint for deeper connection, and a catalyst for societal evolution. By embracing the wisdom of solitude, we move towards a future where being alone is not a mark of deficiency, but a pathway to profound presence, authentic engagement, and a richer, more compassionate collective existence. This is not merely an academic exercise. It is an urgent call to re-evaluate our most fundamental assumptions about what constitutes a full and meaningful life. The quiet revolution of the solitary heart holds the potential to reshape our world, one moment of profound presence at a time. The journey through the solitary Christmas, as we have explored, culminates not in mere endurance, but in a profound metamorphosis of the individual. This transformation, however, does not conclude with personal enlightenment. Rather, it initiates a resonant echo that reverberates beyond the confines of the self, extending its influence into the broader societal fabric. We contend that the individual who has navigated the psychological depths and ascended the spiritual heights of intentional solitude during a culturally demanding period emerges not as an isolated entity, but as a potential architect of community, embodying a new paradigm for human connection and challenging prevailing relational norms. The internal cultivation of an quote 38 and the experience of quote 39 equip the individual with a unique capacity to engage with the world, no longer dependent upon external validation or constant social stimulation to define their worth or quell their existential anxieties. These individuals operate from a place of inherent completeness. This fundamental shift in being has tangible implications for collective flourishing. A challenging relational imperatives. Society often propagates implicit, quote, Rist 40, unspoken rules dictating that happiness is synonymous with constant companionship, that solitude is a sign of social failure, and that one must always be, quote, 41 quote, to avoid the perceived stigma of loneliness. These imperatives, particularly amplified during festive seasons, exert immense pressure, often leading to superficial interactions or the maintenance of unfulfilling relationships merely to conform. The individual who has embraced and thrived in solitude directly challenges these imperatives not through defiance, but through demonstration. Their authentic presence, unburdened by the desperate need for external validation, subtly yet powerfully refutes the notion that constant external connection is the sole arbiter of well-being. They model a different path, one where connection is chosen, not compelled. B. Modeling authentic engagement. When individuals engage from a place of inner abundance, their interactions are qualitatively different. They bring a full, self-possessed presence to their relationships, rather than seeking to fill an internal void. This authenticity fosters deeper, more meaningful connections, as their interactions are characterized by genuine interest, empathy, and a lack of attachment to specific outcomes. They are less prone to people-pleasing, more capable of setting healthy boundaries, and more present in their listening. This modelling of authentic engagement, born from a robust inner life, becomes a quiet invitation for others to explore similar depths within themselves, thereby elevating the collective standard of relational integrity. The ripple effect, from personal insight to collective wisdom. The personal transformation cultivated through a solitary Christmas, when intentionally integrated into daily life, creates a discernible ripple effect. This is not merely an abstract concept. It manifests in concrete ways, in the quality of conversations, in the integrity of collaborative efforts, and in the compassionate understanding extended to others. As individuals embody resilience, self-sufficiency, and a redefined sense of interconnectedness, they become catalysts for similar introspection in their social circles. They demonstrate that profound presence and genuine connection are not diminished by periods of solitude, but are, in fact, often enhanced by them. This individual journey thus contributes to a broader societal awakening, gradually shifting collective consciousness towards a greater appreciation for inner work and its outward manifestations. The insights gleaned from the solitary hearth necessitate a broader societal re-evaluation, a conscious and deliberate reimagining of solitude itself. For too long, solitude has been conflated with loneliness, relegated to the periphery of human experience, or viewed solely as a consequence of social deficiency. We posit that it is time to reclaim solitude as a fundamental human need, a vital component of psychological health, spiritual growth, and societal well-being. A differentiating solitude from loneliness. A societal imperative, says Sext. The distinction between social isolation, an objective state, loneliness, a subjective feeling of distress due to unmet connection needs, and solitude, a chosen state of being alone for introspection or restoration, is not merely an academic exercise. It is a critical societal imperative. Misunderstanding these terms perpetuates stigma and prevents individuals from intentionally seeking the profound benefits of solitude. A societal re-education is required, one that actively champions the distinction and validates the pursuit of intentional alone time as a healthy, enriching practice, rather than a cause for concern or pity. This reframing is essential for fostering a culture where individuals feel empowered to embrace solitude without shame. Solitude as a fundamental human need. We argue that solitude is as fundamental to human flourishing as connection. Just as the body requires rest and nourishment, the psyche and spirit require periods of withdrawal for processing, integration, and renewal. It is in the quiet spaces of solitude that self-awareness deepens, creativity flourishes, and our inner compass is recalibrated. Without it, individuals risk becoming perpetually externally oriented, losing touch with their authentic selves and their intrinsic motivations. Recognizing solitude as a fundamental need means integrating it into our daily rhythms, our educational systems, and our cultural narratives, much as we champion the importance of sleep or healthy eating. Integrating solitude's wisdom, re-envisioning education, therapy, and culture. 1. Educational narratives. From early childhood, educational systems can begin to integrate the value of intentional solitude. Teaching children to appreciate quiet time for reflection, creative play, or focused learning can cultivate a healthy relationship with being alone. Introducing concepts of self-awareness and emotional regulation through practices that require introspection rather than constant group interaction can equip future generations with vital tools for navigating an increasingly complex world. This means moving beyond merely tolerating quiet time to actively fostering it as a developmental asset. 2. Therapeutic frameworks. In therapeutic contexts, solitude can be actively employed as a tool for healing and growth. Beyond addressing loneliness, therapists can guide individuals in cultivating intentional solitude practices to develop self-compassion, process grief, clarify values, and build internal resources. Solitude can become a prescribed treatment for reconnection with the self, rather than merely a symptom to be alleviated. This involves reframing the therapeutic lens to view periods of withdrawal not as pathology, but as potent opportunities for self-discovery and resilience building. 3. Cultural reevaluation. Ultimately, a profound cultural reevaluation is required. This involves challenging the pervasive narrative that equates constant busyness and social engagement with success and happiness. It means celebrating stories of individuals who have found profound meaning and creativity in solitude. Artists, thinkers, spiritual practitioners, and integrating these narratives into mainstream consciousness. Public discourse must shift to openly discuss the benefits of digital detoxes, silent retreats, and dedicated periods of introspection, thereby normalizing and valorizing these practices as essential components of a well-lived life. The solitary hearth, born from the crucible of a Christmas spent alone, thus transcends its immediate context to become a powerful blueprint. It offers a tangible model for fostering a culture of inner abundance and building general life resilience, advocating for a more compassionate and conscious world. A. Fostering a culture of inner abundance. A culture of inner abundance is one where individuals derive their sense of worth and fulfillment not primarily from external possessions, achievements, or social status, but from their rich internal landscape. It is a culture that prioritizes self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and spiritual depth. The experiences of the solitary Christmas, where external festivities are absent and inner resources must be cultivated, provide a microcosm for this broader cultural shift. By demonstrating that profound joy and connection can be found within, the solitary hearth offers a counter-narrative to consumer-driven definitions of happiness. B. Building general life resilience. The intentional engagement with solitude, particularly during a challenging period, builds profound psychological and spiritual resilience. Individuals learn to tolerate discomfort, navigate uncertainty, and draw upon internal strengths. These capacities are not limited to the holiday season, but become enduring traits, equipping individuals to face life's myriad challenges with greater equanimity and adaptability. The solitary hearth, therefore, is not merely a coping mechanism but a training ground for life itself, fostering a deep-seated ability to bounce back from adversity and maintain a sense of purpose even in the absence of external support. C. Advocating for a more compassionate and conscious world. When individuals cultivate inner abundance and resilience, they naturally become more compassionate towards themselves and others. Understanding their own struggles and triumphs in solitude fosters a deeper empathy for the human condition. A world populated by such individuals would inherently be more conscious, more aware of its interconnectedness, more attuned to the needs of its members, and more committed to fostering environments that support holistic well-being. The solitary hearth, therefore, ultimately advocates for a global shift towards greater understanding, kindness, and collective flourishing, built upon the foundation of individual inner work. The insights derived from the solitary Christmas are not seasonal. They represent a quote, 45 applicable far beyond the festive veil. The Christmas period merely serves as an acute amplifier, illuminating existing societal pressures and personal vulnerabilities. The lessons learned of cultivating an inner sanctuary, redefining connection, and embracing solitude's transformative power are universal and timeless. A. The perennial philosophy of being. The shift from perceiving absence to experiencing inner abundance, the redefinition of connection, and the embracing of solitude's wisdom coalesce into an enduring philosophy for navigating existence. This philosophy posits that genuine fulfillment arises from an integrated self, capable of both deep connection and profound self-sufficiency. It encourages continuous introspection, mindful engagement with the present moment, and a recognition of the interconnectedness of all life, regardless of external circumstances or the presence of others. B. A call to action. The continuous practice of inner life. The essay is, in essence, a call to action, a profound invitation to integrate intentional solitude and inner work into the ongoing tapestry of one's life. It is an advocacy for a society that not only tolerates but actively encourages and supports the cultivation of a rich inner life, recognizing its indispensable contribution to individual and collective well-being. This requires a sustained commitment to practices of mindfulness, reflection, and self-care, making the wisdom of the solitary hearth a continuous living practice rather than a temporary resolution. The central mystery that initially confronted us, how to transform the potentially distressing experience of Christmas alone into one of profound presence and self-acceptance, has been systematically unveiled throughout this exploration. The central mystery addressed. We have demonstrated that the perceived enigma is not one of inherent suffering, but rather one of perspective and intentional engagement. The distress often associated with Christmas alone arises from societal conditioning, cognitive biases, and unmet expectations. The transformation occurs when these external pressures are meticulously deconstructed and the individual consciously chooses to reframe the experience, moving from a deficit-based mindset to one of opportunity and growth. B. Integration of psychological resilience and spiritual awakening. The resolution lies precisely in the synergistic integration of psychological resilience and spiritual awakening. Psychological strategies provide the tools for managing cognitive distortions, regulating emotions, and engaging in self-nurturing behaviors. Spiritual insights offer a deeper framework for meaning-making, cultivating inner stillness, and recognizing an inherent interconnectedness that transcends physical presence. It is the weaving together of these two threads, the pragmatic and the transcendent, that transforms potential despair into profound presence and self-acceptance. C. A life of authenticity and connection. The ultimate outcome. The ultimate outcome of this transformative journey is a life characterized by greater authenticity, resilience, and a deeper, more meaningful form of connection. The individual, having navigated the perceived void of solitary Christmas, discovers an inner wellspring of resources, emerging not only whole, but enriched. They learn that true connection begins within, and that self-acceptance is the fertile ground from which all genuine relationships blossom. The solitary Christmas, therefore, is not an endpoint but a powerful catalyst, propelling the individual towards a more conscious, compassionate, and fully integrated way of being in the world. Chapter 7 will now delineate the practical actualization of the culture of inner abundance and collective resilience, as posited in our preceding discussions. We will explore the intricate mechanisms through which educational, therapeutic, and cultural paradigms might integrate the profound wisdom gleaned from the intentional embrace of solitude, particularly during periods of amplified societal expectations such as the Christmas season. This chapter endeavours to move beyond theoretical propositions, offering a framework for societal transformation that reimagines our relationship with self, others, and the very concept of connection. The culture of inner abundance is not merely a philosophical construct. It represents a fundamental reorientation of societal values, shifting from an externalized, scarcity-driven model of validation and connection to an internalized, abundance-oriented recognition of inherent worth and spiritual plenitude. Presently, many societies operate under a pervasive, albeit often unspoken, assumption that human flourishing is contingent upon constant external affirmation, relentless social engagement, and the acquisition of material possessions that signal belonging. This paradigm often fosters a scarcity mindset, wherein connection is perceived as a finite resource to be fiercely pursued, and solitude is consequently interpreted as a deficiency, a personal failure to secure one's share of this scarce commodity. A culture of inner abundance, conversely, posits that true resilience, genuine connection, and sustainable well-being emanate from a deeply cultivated inner landscape. It recognizes that the capacity for authentic engagement with the world is directly proportional to the richness of one's internal life. This cultural shift necessitates a collective understanding that periods of solitude are not absences to be filled, but rather fertile ground for self-discovery, creativity, and the strengthening of the inner core. It champions the notion that individuals are inherently complete and capable of generating their own sense of purpose and contentment, rather than being perpetually reliant on external inputs. This reorientation challenges the shimmering veneer of hyperconnectivity, which often masks profound superficiality, advocating instead for a depth of being that can only be forged in the quietude of self-communion. The integration of this wisdom must commence at the foundational levels of human development within our educational institutions. Current educational models, while excelling in the transmission of cognitive knowledge and vocational skills, frequently overlook the cultivation of emotional literacy, self-awareness, and the capacity for meaningful introspection. To foster a culture of inner abundance, educational paradigms must expand their scope to include curricula for contemplation and self-reflection, introducing practices such as mindfulness, guided meditation, and journaling from an early age can equip students with tools to navigate their internal experiences, regulate emotions, and develop a robust sense of self. These are not merely extracurricular activities but integral components of a holistic education, teaching children how to be present, how to listen to their inner wisdom, and how to find solace in their own company. Emotional intelligence and empathy training. Beyond basic social skills, education should actively foster a deep understanding of human emotions, both one's own and those of others. By exploring the nuances of feelings like loneliness, joy, grief, and contentment in a safe and structured environment, students can develop empathy and learn to differentiate between objective isolation and subjective emotional states. This helps to destigmatize difficult emotions and promotes a compassionate understanding of the human condition. Critical engagement with societal pressures. Educational programs should empower students to critically analyze and deconstruct societal narratives that promote external validation, consumerism, and the relentless pursuit of superficial connection. By understanding the psychological mechanisms behind these pressures, individuals can develop resilience against them, fostering an independent sense of self-worth that is not dictated by external metrics. The value of creative solitude. Encouraging pursuits that inherently involve solitary engagement, such as creative writing, art, music composition, or scientific inquiry, can highlight the profound link between solitude and innovation. Students can learn that many of humanity's greatest achievements have emerged from periods of intense, focused introspection, thereby reframing solitude as a catalyst for ingenuity rather than a state to be avoided. By integrating these elements, education can move beyond merely preparing individuals for the workforce, instead cultivating well-rounded beings who possess a strong inner compass, capable of navigating the complexities of life with resilience, authenticity, and a deep appreciation for their own inner resources. The therapeutic landscape also requires a significant evolution to align with the principles of inner abundance. Traditional psychological approaches often focus on alleviating symptoms, correcting maladaptive behaviors, or resolving past traumas. While these remain vital, a more expansive therapeutic paradigm would emphasize the cultivation of inner resources, reframing psychological distress not solely as pathology, but often as an invitation for deeper self-inquiry and spiritual maturation. From symptom management to inner cultivation. Therapeutic interventions should increasingly incorporate practices that foster self-compassion, presence, and meaning-making. This includes integrating contemplative psychotherapies, existential approaches, and transpersonal psychology, which recognize the spiritual dimension of human experience. The goal shifts from merely reducing anxiety or depression to helping individuals construct a rich and meaningful inner life. Regardless of external circumstances, you're framing loneliness as a catalyst for growth. Instead of pathologizing loneliness as an inherently negative state, therapeutic frameworks can guide individuals to explore its deeper messages. Loneliness, when approached with intention, can serve as a powerful signal for unmet needs, a call to examine one's relationship with self, or an impetus to cultivate internal sources of connection. Therapists can facilitate this transformation, helping clients to differentiate between the pain of social exclusion and the profound opportunities for self-discovery inherent in moments of solitude. Therapeutic spaces as sanctuaries for authenticity. The therapeutic encounter itself can become a model for a culture of inner abundance. By creating spaces of unconditional acceptance and deep listening, therapists can empower clients to shed societal masks and engage with their authentic selves. This process helps individuals to build an internal sanctuary, a psychological resilience that allows them to face life's challenges from a place of inner strength rather than external dependence. Integrating behavioral activation with contemplative practices. While behavioral activation remains crucial for re-engaging with life, it can be enriched by a focus on activities that cultivate inner presence and meaning. Scheduling sacred solitude time, engaging in creative pursuits, or volunteering, not merely as distractions but as intentional acts of self-care and contribution, can reinforce the value of both inner and outer engagement. By embracing these shifts, therapy can transcend its role as a repair mechanism, evolving into a potent force for human flourishing, guiding individuals toward a sustained state of inner abundance and authentic living. Perhaps the most challenging, yet ultimately most impactful, transformation must occur within the broader cultural narrative. The pervasive societal emphasis on external validation, constant connectivity, and the commercialization of happiness creates a powerful current against which individuals often struggle. Shifting this collective consciousness requires a concerted effort across various cultural domains. Media and arts as catalysts for re-narration. Media, literature, film, and art possess an unparalleled power to shape public perception. By portraying solitude not as a mark of failure or sadness, but as a source of strength, creativity, and spiritual depth, these mediums can gradually normalize and even romanticize the practice of intentional aloneness. Stories that celebrate characters who find profound meaning and connection through introspection, rather than solely through external relationships, can inspire a new generation. We can envision narratives where the solitary Christmas, for instance, is depicted as a potent rite of passage, a time of profound personal revelation, rather than merely a somber occasion. Public discourse and advocacy. Leaders, thinkers, and public figures must actively challenge the prevailing relational imperatives and advocate for the inherent value of solitude. Open conversations about the psychological benefits of quietude, the dangers of digital overstimulation, and the importance of cultivating an inner life can gradually shift collective attitudes. This includes advocating for policies that support mental well-being, such as promoting flexible work arrangements that allow for personal rejuvenation and discouraging the relentless pressure for constant availability. creating spaces for contemplation. Urban planning and community design can incorporate elements that facilitate quiet reflection. Public gardens, silent libraries, contemplation rooms, or designated unplugged zones can serve as physical manifestations of a culture that values inner peace. Community rituals that honor periods of silence or introspection, perhaps even a collective digital detox period, could foster a shared appreciation for the benefits of stepping away from the external clamor. Challenging consumerism and external happiness. A significant aspect of this cultural shift involves delinking happiness from consumption and external validation. The relentless advertising that equates joy with material possessions or constant social activity undermines the cultivation of inner abundance. Cultural movements can promote minimalist lifestyles, experiences over possessions, and an understanding that true contentment arises from internal states rather than external acquisitions. The solitary Christmas, which we have explored as a potent crucible for individual transformation, serves as a powerful symbol for this larger societal shift. When individuals are empowered to transform this potentially distressing experience into one of profound presence and self-acceptance, they become living testaments to the power of inner abundance. Their example, initially a quiet rebellion against societal norms, can gradually inspire others, demonstrating that true connection begins within and radiates outward. The path toward a culture of inner abundance is not without its formidable challenges. The inertia of established norms, the pervasive fear of being alone, and the powerful economic drivers of hypersocialization and consumerism present significant obstacles. This transformation will not be instantaneous. It is a gradual, iterative process requiring sustained advocacy, individual courage, and collective commitment. The architects of community, those individuals who have cultivated their own inner abundance and now model authentic engagement, play a critical role in spearheading this change. They are the pioneers who demonstrate that a different way of being is not only possible, but also deeply fulfilling. Ultimately, a society built upon principles of inner abundance would manifest as a more resilient, empathetic, and authentically connected collective. We would witness reduced societal distress, a decrease in the pervasive rates of anxiety, depression, and superficiality that plague modern societies as individuals find greater rootedness and meaning within themselves. Amplified empathy and genuine connection. True connection would stem from a place of inner completeness rather than external neediness, fostering deeper, more meaningful relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. Flourishing creativity and innovation. As individuals cultivate spaces for quiet contemplation, creativity would be unleashed, leading to novel solutions for societal challenges and a richer cultural landscape. Enhanced collective resilience. A society composed of individuals who are self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and capable of finding solace within themselves would be better equipped to navigate collective crises, adapting with greater fortitude and compassion. The solitary Christmas, once a symbol of societal failure and personal inadequacy, would thus be transmuted into a powerful testament to individual strength and a beacon for a more profound, authentic way of being. It would stand as a reminder that the greatest gifts are often found not in external revelry, but in the quiet, transformative depths of the human spirit. This continuous journey, from individual reclamation to societal transformation, underscores the profound and enduring implications of reimagining solitude. The profound personal metamorphosis, initiated by the intentional embrace of a solitary Christmas, does not culminate in mere individual transformation. Rather, it acts as a potent catalyst, initiating a broader societal recalibration. We contend that the cultivation of an inner sanctuary and the adoption of a perennial philosophy of being by an increasing number of individuals will inevitably precipitate a ripple effect that transcends personal boundaries, ultimately reshaping collective consciousness and challenging long-held societal paradigms. This chapter will explore the mechanisms and implications of this societal shift, delineating how the wisdom gleaned from solitary experiences, particularly during traditionally communal periods such as Christmas, can foster a more authentic, resilient, and compassionate global community. One of the most critical aspects of this societal transformation involves the reclamation of solitude from its current pejorative framing. For too long, societal discourse has conflated solitude with loneliness, casting the individual who chooses or experiences aloneness as somehow deficient, marginalized, or pitiable. This pervasive misconception is deeply embedded in our cultural narratives, manifesting in media portrayals, social expectations, and even the design of our communal spaces. We observe how the festive season, with its relentless emphasis on togetherness and familial bonds, serves as an acute amplifier of this misinterpretation, rendering solitary individuals particularly vulnerable to feelings of inadequacy or shame. To effect a genuine societal shift, we must embark upon a concerted effort to differentiate explicitly between objective isolation and subjective loneliness, and, crucially, to distinguish both from intentional solitude. Solitude, as we have argued, is not merely the absence of others, but a fertile presence, a conscious choice to engage with the self, to listen to the inner voice, and to cultivate a profound sense of self-sufficiency. This distinction requires a re-education of the public consciousness, a reframing that can be achieved through multiple avenues: public discourse and media representation. We advocate for a deliberate alteration in how solitude is portrayed in popular culture, moving away from narratives of tragic isolation toward those that celebrate introspection, creativity, and self-discovery. This involves showcasing individuals who thrive in periods of solitude, demonstrating its benefits for mental clarity, innovation, and spiritual growth. Educational initiatives, integrating lessons on self-awareness, emotional regulation, and the value of contemplation into educational curricula from an early age, can equip future generations with the tools to embrace solitude constructively. This would involve teaching children to differentiate between healthy introspection and withdrawal, fostering an understanding of their own inner landscapes. Philosophical and spiritual reappraisal, a deeper engagement with ancient wisdom traditions which have consistently venerated solitude as a path to enlightenment and self-realization, can provide a robust intellectual and spiritual foundation for this paradigm shift, by highlighting the contributions of mystics, philosophers, artists, and scientists who have drawn profound insights from their solitary periods. We can underscore the enduring human need for and benefit from aloneness. By meticulously dismantling the stigma associated with solitude, society can begin to sanction it not merely as an acceptable state, but as a vital component of human flourishing. This re-evaluation is not an endorsement of perpetual isolation, but a recognition of solitude's essential role in balancing our inherently social nature, enabling us to return to community from a place of renewed strength and authenticity. Cultivating a culture of inner abundance. The individual journey from perceived absence to inner abundance, when replicated across a significant portion of the populace, naturally engenders a culture of inner abundance. This societal ethos is characterized by a collective shift in values, prioritizing intrinsic worth and self-sufficiency over external validation and material acquisition. In a society steeped in inner abundance, the pervasive relational imperatives that often compel individuals into superficial or unfulfilling connections begin to recede. The relentless pursuit of external markers of success, wealth, status, constant social engagement, diminishes in favor of an appreciation for internal richness, personal growth, and meaningful, authentic interactions. This cultural transformation carries profound implications, challenging consumerism. A society that values inner abundance is inherently less susceptible to the dictates of consumerism. When individuals derive their sense of worth and contentment from within, the perceived need to acquire material possessions or engage in performative social consumption lessens significantly. This shift could foster more sustainable practices and a reorientation of economic models towards needs rather than manufactured desires. Redefining success. The conventional metrics of success, often tied to external achievements and public recognition, would gradually expand to include measures of inner peace, emotional intelligence, and spiritual depth. This broader definition would alleviate immense societal pressure, allowing individuals to pursue paths aligned with their authentic selves rather than conforming to predefined, often arbitrary, ideals, enhancing mental and emotional well-being. The relentless pursuit of external validation is a significant contributor to anxiety, depression, and a pervasive sense of inadequacy in contemporary society. A culture of inner abundance, by contrast, fosters resilience, self-compassion, and emotional regulation. When individuals are grounded in their own intrinsic worth, they are better equipped to navigate life's challenges, less prone to comparison, and more capable of finding contentment independent of external circumstances. This translates to a society with improved collective mental health and a reduced reliance on external coping mechanisms. The transition to a culture of inner abundance is not an overnight revolution, but an evolutionary process. It involves a gradual yet profound reprioritization of what it means to live a good life, moving away from the superficial toward the substantive, from the external toward the internal. The transformation of relational dynamics. Perhaps one of the most compelling consequences of a society that embraces solitude and inner abundance is the radical transformation of relational dynamics. When individuals cultivate an inner sanctuary and approach relationships from a place of wholeness rather than need, the very nature of human connection shifts fundamentally. The pervasive fear of loneliness, which often drives individuals into transactional or codependent relationships, begins to dissipate. In a culture of inner abundance, relationships are characterized by authenticity and depth. Individuals secure in their own being are empowered to bring their full, authentic selves to their interactions. There is less need for pretense, people-pleasing, or the constant seeking of approval. This fosters deeper, more meaningful connections rooted in genuine appreciation and mutual respect, rather than superficiality or utility. Voluntary engagement. Connections become more voluntary, arising from a genuine desire for shared experience, intellectual stimulation, or emotional intimacy, rather than from a desperate need to fill an internal void. This freedom from neediness paradoxically strengthens bonds, as each person contributes from a position of strength and self-possession. Respect for individual space. A societal understanding of the value of solitude naturally extends to a greater respect for individual space within relationships. Partners, family members, and friends learn to honor each other's need for introspection, quietude, and personal time, recognizing these periods as essential for individual well-being and, by extension, the health of the relationship itself. This reduces the pressure for constant togetherness and fosters a more balanced, sustainable form of intimacy. Reduced conflict and enhanced empathy. When individuals are emotionally regulated and grounded in their inner abundance, they are less reactive, more capable of perspective-taking, and better equipped to communicate their needs and boundaries effectively. This leads to a reduction in interpersonal conflict and an enhancement of collective empathy, as people approach others from a place of understanding rather than insecurity. The paradox inherent in this transformation is profound. By valuing and cultivating solitude, we ultimately enhance our capacity for truly meaningful connection. The perennial philosophy of being extends beyond the individual to inform collective interaction, fostering a web of relationships characterized by genuine care, independent strength, and profound mutual respect. For this societal shift to be truly enduring, the wisdom of solitude and inner abundance must be systematically integrated into foundational societal structures, particularly within educational and therapeutic paradigms. These institutions are pivotal in shaping individual and collective understanding, and their evolution is crucial for embedding these new values. Within educational systems, the integration would entail mindfulness and contemplative practices, introducing age-appropriate mindfulness exercises, meditation, and quiet reflection periods into school curricula can help children develop self-awareness, emotional regulation, and an appreciation for inner stillness. These practices cultivate the capacity for solitude from an early age, framing it as a skill for life rather than an absence. Curricula on self-knowledge and emotional literacy. Developing educational modules that explore the psychology of emotions, the importance of self-compassion, and the benefits of introspection can equip students with the tools to understand their inner worlds and navigate their emotional landscapes independently. Reimagining learning environments. Creating spaces within educational institutions that encourage quiet reflection, independent study, and focused concentration, rather than exclusively promoting collaborative or group-oriented activities, signals the institutional validation of solitary work. In the realm of therapeutic practices, the shift would involve solitude as a healing modality. Therapists could increasingly prescribe periods of intentional solitude as part of treatment plans for anxiety, stress, and burnout, helping clients rediscover their inner resources and reconnect with their authentic selves. This moves beyond viewing solitude as merely the absence of social contact and positions it as an active, restorative intervention. Challenging relational codependency. Therapeutic approaches can be refocused to help individuals dismantle patterns of codependency and external validation, guiding them towards self-sufficiency and intrinsic worth. This involves deconstructing societal narratives that equate constant social engagement with well-being. Promoting inner resourcefulness. Therapists can empower clients to cultivate their inner sanctuary, teaching them techniques for self-soothing, emotional resilience, and meaning-making that are not dependent on external sources. This fosters a robust sense of personal agency and enduring well-being. Furthermore, workplace environments can evolve to recognize and support the need for periods of focused, uninterrupted solitude. Designing workspaces that offer quiet zones, promoting flexible work arrangements that allow for concentrated individual effort, and fostering a culture that respects personal boundaries can significantly enhance productivity, creativity, and employee well-being. This acknowledges that deep work often requires periods of uninterrupted focus, which is a form of intentional solitude within a professional context. We acknowledge that such a profound societal reorientation is not without its challenges. Deeply ingrained cultural patterns, particularly those centered on external validation, constant social connection, and the relentless pursuit of busyness as a virtue, will present significant resistance. The notion of slowing down, looking inward, and valuing periods of aloneness can feel counterintuitive, even threatening, to a society that has long equated productivity with constant activity and happiness with perpetual external stimulation. This resistance manifests in various forms. Fear of the unknown. For many, the prospect of genuine solitude can evoke anxiety, rooted in an unfamiliarity with their own inner landscape, or a fear of confronting unaddressed emotions. Economic imperatives. The consumerist engine of many modern economies thrives on external dissatisfaction and the constant desire for more, which directly contradicts the ethos of inner abundance. Social pressure and inertia. The sheer weight of existing social norms and expectations makes it difficult for individuals to deviate from prescribed paths, even when these paths are unfulfilling. However, we maintain that this is an evolutionary path, not a sudden revolution. The transformation will be gradual, championed by individuals and communities who have personally experienced the profound benefits of solitude and inner abundance. These pioneers will serve as exemplars, demonstrating through their lived experience the enhanced authenticity, resilience, and depth that such a shift confers. Their stories, their peace, and their meaningful connections will become the most compelling arguments for societal change. It requires patience, sustained effort in advocacy, and a compassionate understanding of the human tendency to cling to familiar, albeit sometimes unfulfilling, patterns. Ultimately, the societal integration of the wisdom gleaned from solitary experiences, particularly those catalyzed by moments such as a Christmas spent alone, culminates in the collective manifestation of a perennial philosophy of being. This is a society where being is prioritized over having or doing, where intrinsic worth is universally acknowledged, and where the human experience is understood as a dynamic interplay between genuine connection and profound introspection. In this envisioned future, solitude is no longer a dreaded state but a cherished resource, a wellspring from which individuals draw strength, clarity, and creative inspiration. The individual who spends Christmas alone is not seen as an anomaly or an object of pity, but as someone potentially engaged in a profound act of self-discovery, contributing to a broader understanding of human resilience and the multifaceted nature of well-being. The ultimate outcome is a society characterized by greater authenticity. Individuals and communities are more aligned with their true values, fostering genuine expression and reducing the societal burden of pretense and conformity. Enhanced resilience. A collective capacity to navigate challenges, both individual and global, from a place of inner strength and emotional stability, rather than external reactivity. Deeper, more meaningful connection. Relationships are built on mutual respect, genuine care, and the shared pursuit of growth, rather than on need or superficiality. A culture of compassion. Understanding and empathy flourish as individuals are more attuned to their own inner worlds and, by extension, better able to comprehend and respond to the experiences of others. The solitary Christmas, once viewed as a potential nadir of human experience, thus transforms into a powerful microcosm for this larger societal shift. It becomes a crucible for individual and collective transformation, demonstrating how moments of perceived absence can be redefined as fertile presences, ultimately leading humanity toward a more integrated, harmonious, and deeply meaningful existence. The journey of the individual alone during the festive season becomes a beacon, illuminating a path toward a richer, more profound way of being for all. Having traversed the intricate landscapes of individual transformation, from the depths of solitary Christmas experiences to the heights of inner abundance, we now turn our gaze toward the broader societal canvas, the profound insights gleaned from individuals who have transmuted the perceived void of solitude into a fertile ground for growth are not merely personal victories. They represent the foundational elements for a more resilient, empathetic, and authentically connected society. The challenge, and indeed the imperative before us, is to integrate this hard-won wisdom into the very fabric of our collective existence, our educational, therapeutic, and cultural paradigms. This integration is not a peripheral enhancement, but a fundamental reimagining, designed to foster a culture of inner abundance, where intrinsic worth and self-sufficiency are valued above the ephemeral dictates of external validation. The journey toward inner abundance begins not in adulthood, in response to the acute pangs of loneliness, but ideally in the formative years of childhood and adolescence. Our current educational systems, while ostensibly designed to prepare individuals for life, often prioritize cognitive and vocational skills, inadvertently neglecting the cultivation of the inner landscape. The emphasis frequently falls upon external metrics of success, grades, achievements, social standing, which can inadvertently foster a dependence on external validation, leaving individuals ill-equipped to navigate the complexities of their internal worlds, particularly during moments of solitude. To architect a culture of inner abundance, we must first envision educational paradigms that consciously nurture self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the capacity for meaningful introspection. This necessitates a shift from a purely performance-driven model to one that integrates practices designed to foster intrinsic worth. We propose the systematic inclusion of mindfulness-based practices within school curricula, not as an optional addendum but as a core component of holistic development, teaching children and adolescents basic meditation techniques, self-compassion exercises, and reflective journaling can equip them with tools to understand and regulate their emotions, to sit with discomfort without immediate external recourse, and to discern their authentic inner voice amidst the clamour of external expectations. Furthermore, critical thinking skills must extend beyond academic subjects to encompass a nuanced understanding of societal pressures and media narratives. Students should be encouraged to deconstruct the pervasive relational imperatives that often equate solitude with failure or inadequacy. Through guided discussions and age-appropriate philosophical inquiry, they can explore the historical and cultural significance of solitude, recognizing it not as an absence but as a potent presence, a space for creativity, problem-solving, and spiritual communion. This educational reorientation would empower future generations to develop a robust sense of self-worth, independent of their social calendars or their perceived popularity, laying the groundwork for a citizenry that is less susceptible to the anxieties of comparison and more grounded in its own intrinsic value. The aim is to cultivate individuals who understand that their worth is not contingent upon constant external engagement, but is an inherent, unwavering truth. Much like the steady flame within a protective lantern, in parallel with educational reforms, therapeutic paradigms must also evolve to reflect a deeper understanding of solitude's potential. Traditionally, therapeutic interventions for loneliness or social isolation often focus on addressing perceived deficits, lack of social skills, anxiety in social situations, or cognitive distortions that impede connection. While these approaches are undeniably valuable, they risk overlooking the profound resource that solitude itself can represent. A culture of inner abundance necessitates therapeutic approaches that reframe solitude not merely as a problem to be solved, but as a crucible for growth and an opportunity for profound self-discovery. This involves moving beyond a purely symptomatic treatment of loneliness to a more holistic exploration of the individual's relationship with solitude. Therapists can guide clients to cultivate a conscious and intentional relationship with being alone, transforming it from a dreaded state into a welcomed sanctuary. This might involve integrating elements of acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, which encourages individuals to accept difficult thoughts and feelings while committing to values-driven actions, even in solitude. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, offer structured pathways to develop present-moment awareness and non-judgmental acceptance, allowing individuals to observe their internal states without being overwhelmed by them. Moreover, the therapeutic narrative can shift from pathologizing the desire for solitude or the experience of being alone to validating it as a fundamental human need. Clients can be encouraged to explore the spiritual dimensions of solitude, drawing from the same rich traditions that have historically recognized its transformative power. This might involve guided contemplative practices, journaling prompts focused on self-inquiry, or bibliotherapy exploring philosophical and spiritual texts on solitude. The goal is to equip individuals with the internal resources to generate their own contentment and meaning, fostering a sense of self-sufficiency that does not preclude authentic connection, but rather enhances it. By helping individuals to cultivate an inner wellspring of peace and purpose, therapy can empower them to engage with the world from a place of wholeness, rather than from a perceived void. The therapeutic space thus becomes a laboratory for cultivating the inner garden, where seeds of self-compassion and intrinsic worth are carefully tended. Ultimately, the most pervasive and challenging transformation required for a culture of inner abundance lies within our broader cultural paradigms. Our contemporary society, driven by pervasive digital connectivity and a relentless emphasis on external achievement and constant social engagement, often implicitly and sometimes explicitly stigmatizes solitude. Media narratives frequently depict being alone as a state of pity or failure, particularly during festive seasons. This perpetuates a cycle where individuals fear solitude, not only for its inherent discomfort, but also for the societal judgment it may invite. To foster a culture of inner abundance, we must collectively challenge and dismantle these ingrained cultural narratives. This requires a conscious effort to redefine connection itself. True connection, as illuminated by those who have embraced transformative solitude, is not merely about constant external interaction. It is about authentic engagement stemming from a place of inner wholeness. When individuals are internally resourced, their connections become less about filling a void and more about sharing abundance. Cultural institutions, including media, arts, and public discourse, play a pivotal role in this redefinition. We need more nuanced portrayals of solitude in film, literature, and art, depictions that celebrate introspection, creativity born of quietude, and the profound peace found in one's own company. Public policy can also contribute by advocating for the creation of, quote, 69, quote, within urban environments, promoting digital detox initiatives, and valuing rest and contemplation as essential components of well-being, not as luxuries or signs of idleness. Furthermore, a culture of inner abundance necessitates a re-evaluation of our societal values, particularly regarding consumerism and external validation. The relentless pursuit of material possessions and the constant comparison fostered by social media often serve as distractions from inner work, perpetuating a cycle of external seeking. By shifting our collective focus towards intrinsic worth, self-sufficiency, and the richness of internal experience, we can begin to disentangle well-being from material acquisition and social performance. This is a profound cultural recalibration, moving away from a society that often measures worth by what one has or who one knows, to one that values what one is, an inherently whole and capable being. The societal atmosphere must become one that not only tolerates, but actively encourages and celebrates the journey inward, recognizing it as a vital contribution to collective flourishing. The integration of these educational, therapeutic, and cultural shifts culminates in the manifestation of a true, quote, 70. Quote, what does such a society look like? It is characterized by individuals who possess a robust internal locus of control, who are not easily swayed by external criticism or dependent on external praise. They are self-sufficient in the truest sense, capable of generating their own meaning, purpose, and contentment, yet are simultaneously deeply connected to others from a place of genuine empathy and respect. This society is inherently more resilient. When individuals are grounded in their intrinsic worth and possess the tools to navigate their inner landscapes, they are better equipped to withstand personal crises, societal upheavals, and the inevitable challenges of life. The acute amplification of loneliness during events like Christmas alone loses much of its sting when individuals are internally abundant, capable of transforming perceived absence into a fertile presence. This resilience extends beyond the individual, creating communities that are less prone to fragmentation and more capable of collective adaptation and innovation. It is also a profoundly more empathetic society. Empathy, at its core, requires an understanding of one's own emotional landscape and the ability to project that understanding onto others. Individuals who have journeyed inward, confronted their own vulnerabilities in solitude, and cultivated self-compassion are far better positioned to extend genuine compassion and understanding to others. They recognize the shared human experience of struggle and triumph, fostering connections built on authentic understanding rather than superficial commonalities or transactional exchanges. The other is not an external entity to be judged or used, but a fellow traveller on the path of existence, deserving of respect and understanding. Finally, a culture of inner abundance fosters authentically connected relationships. When individuals engage from a place of wholeness, free from the desperate need for validation or the fear of inadequacy, their interactions become more genuine, profound, and equitable. These connections are characterized by mutual respect, deep listening, and a shared pursuit of meaning, rather than by codependence or the performance of social roles. The societal pressure to constantly do and be seen diminishes, replaced by a valuing of authentic presence and meaningful engagement. The collective experience of Christmas, for instance, would no longer be defined by a singular, externally imposed ideal, but by a spectrum of authentic expressions, including the profound peace of chosen solitude and the joyous communion of shared presence, each equally respected and understood. The journey of transforming the experience of Christmas alone, therefore, transcends the individual. It becomes a blueprint for a societal transformation, a pathway to a future where intrinsic worth is the bedrock of identity, self-sufficiency is the wellspring of resilience, and authentic connection is the natural outflow of inner abundance. This is not a utopian fantasy, but a tangible aspiration, achievable through the deliberate and sustained integration of psychological wisdom and spiritual insight into every facet of our collective human endeavor. The quiet revolution begins within each solitary heart, echoing outwards to reshape the very contours of our shared world.